Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. My name is Steph and this is Ordinary Plant Girl. If you are new here, thank you for clicking on this video, and if you are returning, thank you so much for spending more of your time with me. A while back, I think one of the first videos that I ever made, not the first, but one of the first, was titled Which is Which. I was discussing the differences between the Philodendron Rojo Congo, the Philodendron Imperial Red, and the Philodendron Black Cardinal. Now, when I first put that video together, any of you that, know me or have gotten to know me know that I cannot pre-plan my content. I just can't. Anything that I've tried to pre-plan never works out the way that I want it to, or I end up scrapping the entire idea and doing something else. Well, and this was no different, even back then. So the reason why I had made that video in the first place was because all three of those plants were constantly mislabeled. They were mislabeled to the point where at that point I had 3 black cardinals, 3 imperial reds, and I had 2 rojo congos. I ended up with 3 of them. When those plants were juvenile, it was really hard to tell them apart. But anyway, I had basically made that video because I was upset that I kept buying plants that I already had, because when they were juvenile it was really hard to tell them apart. I think out of those 3, the Rojo Congo at that time was the biggest I'd had, so it was really easy to kind of tell the differences. But anyway, that's what that video was about, and to date it is my most watched video since I've been on YouTube. The most watched. I'm still getting comments on that video, and I always make sure that I reply to those ones because I'm still surprised that people are like, thank you for this, when basically it was my frustration with buying those plants that led to that video. Anyway, we're about to do that again. Not so much in the way where I had been misled into buying these plants, but in the way where you can see how they could possibly be mistaken for one or the other, and how you'll be able to tell which one you have. So as you can see by the title, today's Which is Which is going to be about the Scindapsus Argyraeus, Silvery Ann, and the Exotica, because I've seen so many people's comments about how most of the mistakes have been done, from what I can see, through the Silvery Ann and the Argyraeus, and I currently know of a website that is selling the Silvery Ann labeled as the Argyraeus, and if that's the case though, go buy it, because I don't see Silvery Anns for sale here where I live pretty much anywhere unless you're going private, which is what I had to do to get mine. What I wanted to do was talk about a few ways to tell the difference between those 3 plants and know which one you have. For me, in my home where I live, one of the easiest ways to tell which ones I have are by their leaf pattern, their leaf size, and their growth rate. The growth pattern as well is different across all 3, I've noticed, at least for me. I don't know about anybody else, but for me in my care, the growth pattern is definitely different. So those are the things we're going to go over today. Let's start with the most common one that you're going to see, which is the Scindapsus Argyraeus. If I'm even pronouncing that right, I'm not sure. Okay, so here we have the Scindapsus Argyraeus. So this one for me has been a very good grower. But if you take a close look at the leaf pattern, you can see that the silvery markings are sporadic across the leaf. So I do have a couple of cases where there's a little bit more silver, and then let's see if I can find one that's got less silver on it. It's a little curly because I did just water it yesterday, but even these small leaves, the Argyraeus has a more speckled silvery pattern on the leaves. And that was one of the reasons why I love this plant, like just over the years from, you know, when I was younger and buying the plant anyway, because the Argyraeus is the most common one that you can find here. And it is just the one that you can find in any big box store, dollar stores, anywhere. You'll be able to find this. So I have been cutting this one a lot because my main objective has been to try and fill out the top of the plant. And the shelf that it's on just has everything coming forward, which I also love. And it's pretty much due for another haircut soon. You can also tell that these smaller leaves here are the ones that are kind of facing away from the light, and these bigger leaves have pretty much got like prime real estate in front of the grow lights that it's in, because I do have track lighting that has grow light bulbs in it. Now, something that's common of the Scindapsus is just the way I like to say that the leaves swoop. This is probably one of the biggest leaves that I have on this plant, but they don't grow much bigger than that, at least not for me. It's a really fast grower. The Argyraeus grows really quickly, which is why you can see it's already time for another haircut. This one here was actually a cutting that I had planted back into the plant, and I had taken another cutting off it, if you can see right there. I'm constantly cutting this plant because I do want it to get bushier and branch out more. I'm just going to have to chop this one off again right here. But those leaves are so much bigger, like just the, you can tell these smaller leaves, number one, they're at the back of the plant. And I do pull the leaves forward, so these bigger ones on the bottom are getting a lot more light. And they're just growing fantastically. Anyway, that is the Scindapsus Argyraeus. Okay, the one that I find that the Argyraeus gets confused with the most is the Silvery Ann. And here is my Scindapsus Silvery Ann. So one of the things that, at least for me, I notice right off the bat about the difference in the leaf pattern is that the Silvery Ann does have condensed silver at the bottom of the leaf. Some of these leaves are just starting to get bigger and produce more silver. You can see here that this leaf is predominantly silver, but almost all the time when you're dealing with a Silvery Ann, you're going to find the silver at the tip of the leaf. So it will be speckled like the Argyraeus, but it will have condensed silver at the bottom of the leaf. And I had to get this one through a cutting. I think it was just a one leaf cutting, maybe two. It's taken a long time for this to become established enough to grow for me. Now, one thing you'll notice is the growth pattern of this one, basically because of the way it is on the shelf. I've got all my Scindapsuses up on a shelf in front of the track lighting, grow light, but you can see that it's trying to grow up towards the light instead of hanging down because it doesn't have enough weight on it yet in order to pull it down. But where you can see with the Argyraeus, let's see if I can show you. So with the Argyraeus, you can see that the growth pattern, the internodal spacing on these vines is much further apart than the internodal spacing on the Silvery Ann. And is that a common thing? I honestly have no idea. But I can say that they are in the exact same area. The Argyraeus grows really quickly, has larger internodal spacing, and my Silvery Ann is trying to grow up, which quite a few of the Scindapsuses are doing. So I have never cut this plant. I have been trying to wait for it to get longer before I cut it. But what I do notice is that from the base of the plant, it did actually branch out and put out this little vine here. So it did that all on its own. I wasn't even paying attention. When I look at this plant like this, dropping dirt on my floor. When I look at the plant like this, it looks absolutely stunning to me. Stunning. But yeah, so the biggest difference that you're going to see, in my opinion, is that when you are looking at a Silvery Ann, you are going to see the silver down at the base, and these leaves don't get much bigger than the Argyraeus leaves. Now, the leaf size between the Silvery Ann and the Argyraeus is pretty much the same. I do find that this grows slower than the Argyraeus. Out of the three, it is definitely the fastest growing one. I probably already said that, but I'm going to say it again. This one has grown slower, but now that spring is here and now that it's finally like established, it has started to pick up its growth rate. And even here, what I do want to cut this plant eventually. I'd like to wait until it comes down a little bit further below the bottom. But what I am seeing constantly with this one is that, if I can get them apart, is you can see there's a new leaf here, but it's already pushing out another new leaf here. So I don't cut it because I would like the leaf to harden off before I cut it off, but it's constantly putting out a new one. So I can't get in there to do it. It's gonna happen eventually. So I guess I'm just gonna have to wait until that happens. Okay, so that is the Scindapsus pictus Silvery Ann. So it is not easy to find here, at least not for me. Like I said, I did have to get a cutting from somebody from a local faceplant group, from a local Facebook group. And I got that. Currently seen the Silvery Ann being sold as the Argyraeus on a website. I almost bought it because at the time, my Silvery Ann was still relatively small. It's been a couple of years almost since I got that cutting. I did have to water root it and go through all of that. A general theme with my plants is they like to practically die before they, you know, won't want to do anything for me, or they sit dormant for like ever until I threaten to throw them away or chop them up, and then they're like, hi, we're here. So that now brings us to the Scindapsus pictus Exotica. And that one is this one here. So you can tell just by looking at that leaf right away that it's different. Number one, the patterning on the leaves, there is way more silver than there is green. It is predominantly silver, and the green is mainly in the midrib of the leaf. So that is not only one of your number one indicators that you have an Exotica, but another one is going to be the sheer leaf size of this plant. Now, I know that these leaves can get bigger. I haven't experienced that yet. This plant has a story. I had purchased a Scindapsus pictus Silver Splash and an Exotica on Etsy, and when I got them, the leaves on both of they were just cuttings. They weren't even rooted. They were just cuttings, fresh cuts. And when they were shipped, all 4 cuttings lost their leaves, so I was left with wet sticks. My mistake was not labeling them when I put them into a prop box to see if I could bring them back. And 3 of the 4 wet sticks died. Just rotted out and died. I had 1 left and had absolutely no idea if it was going to be a Silver Splash or if it was going to be Exotica. I was rooting for the Exotica because this is not an easy plant to find where I am at all. You cannot just go in and buy it in a store. I have not seen a big box store that has it. If I'm wrong, any of my lower mainland people that are currently watching me, if you know of a big box store, not a garden center, but a big box store where you could find an Exotica, let me know. I do think that Garden Works has them now. They didn't at the time. I mean, Garden Works didn't even exist out here at the time that I got this. So it took a long time, a really long time to find out which one I had, because it's funny, the mother leaf, the first leaf that grew, you can see in there is finally like dried up and fallen off. But the thing is that even with this next leaf here, both of those leaves were green. So I still had absolutely no idea what plant I had. By the time this leaf came along, and it was still relatively fresh, I'm pretty sure I threw it out to Instagram for somebody to help me figure out which one it was that I had. And it came back emphatically that it was an Exotica, and I was like the happiest person because of that. And since then, it has been the slowest grower. I thought my Jade Scindapsus was slow. That one has taken off. I've cut that one a couple of times now, trying to make a bushier plant, and I got nothing. I got like that. So slow for me, so slow. But also, if you look at the internodal spacing on this plant as well, that's super tight. Compared to all of them, that is, even when I cut it, it's gonna be a thing, because there is no insurance there at all. So let's do this. So if you look at your Exotica and you look at the Silvery Ann, you can easily tell the difference between these two plants, basically because of the amount of silver and the pattern of silver on this plant. The growth pattern, the internodal spacing is also different. This has got the smallest, this would be the middle. So then if you look at these two together, you can definitely see the difference between those as well. So the differences between them actually make me wonder if one of the reasons why the Argyraeus is the one that we see the most is because it's the fastest growing. It is the easiest to propagate, the easiest to share, would be that one. With the Exotica being such a slow grower, in my opinion, being such a slow grower, I can kind of understand why you might not see it as much out there. But the Silvery Ann being the middle child, I think is, out of the three, is probably my favorite. Why would it be my favorite? Because it has areas that are predominantly silver, and it has areas that have the silver speckling like the Argyraeus does. The leaves are probably midpoint between the two, although I think all of them are absolutely stunning plants. I can see how the Argyraeus gets leggy really quickly. I see how you could be impatient with the Exotica growth, and the Silvery Ann has just got the best of everything for me. My care for these three plants is the same across the board. They will get showered once a month, just so that I can make sure that the leaves are cleaned off, because they do have kind of a suede leaf texture, so I tend to not wipe down the leaves because dust will stick to them. So I will shower them down once a month. Scindapsuses, along with some other types of plants, will let you know that they're thirsty by having their leaves curl. I do try to get to them before the leaves start curling, but because one of the plants is in a 5-inch pot while the other two are in 4-inch pots, I will generally wait for that 5-inch pot one to show me that it's ready. I do feed them close to a full dose strength fertilizer. I am kind of playing with fertilizers right now, but the ones that I use on these ones primarily right now is just Miracle Grow liquid fertilizer. I do give them, like I said, about 3/4 of a dose. I do that across all my Scindapsuses. I do that across all of them, and it seems to be working out really well for them. Their lighting, like I said, I do have 2 11-watt grow light bulbs that I just got off Amazon that are in track lighting that is right in front of the shelf that they're on. Soil mix. The soil mix that I do use for these guys is a little bit more on the denser side. So I do alter my soil mixes based on the plant that I'm planting. So because it's a trailing plant, I do treat almost all of my trailing plants the exact same way. So they are a little bit heavier on the perlite. In some cases, there is a little bit of orchid bark in some of these ones, especially with the Argyraeus, because I was having problems with it staying damp too long. So I did make that one a little bit chunkier. But besides that, it is soil, perlite, charcoal, and that's pretty much it. I find that any of these plants are a welcome addition to any collection, especially if you do love vining plants, because if you do, these are must-haves, all 3 of them. There are so many Scindapsus varieties that are out there now. Aside from one that's on my wish list, I'm really content with my Scindapsus collection. I will have to go over that with you guys at another time, but for now, I really just wanted to go over the differences between the 3 and see if any of you find the exact same thing. But I am really interested to know if you have all 3 of these plants, or even if you have just 1 or 2 of them. Tell me how they grow for you. Let me know if they're fast, or if you have the same issue with the Exotica. Is it a slow grower for you? Because it's predominantly silver, it has to put out bigger leaves. I don't know, I am curious. So that being said, guys, that is it for me. I hope you are all safe and well. Please like and consider subscribing to my channel. Leave any comments below, and I will see you in the next video. Bye.